Pete Yost here for the Unbuild It podcast with a word about our sponsor, Huber Engineered Woods. There are really three reasons why I think Huber Engineered Woods stands out, and it's a big part of why they're a sponsor of our Unbuild It podcast. First, they develop systems of products. The products are compatible and integrated. Makes our jobs a lot more easy in the field and when specifying. Second is superior tech support. There are really good website resources that they have developed for the application of their products, but they also have an outstanding 800 numbered tech team that really knows their stuff. And the last is a really active technical research and development team with whom I've done a lot of work over the years, and I have a lot of faith in the information I get from them when I have questions about product performance. So that's it. That's our high performance sponsor. Now on to the podcast.
Welcome to the Unbuild It podcast. I'm Jake Bruton. Today I'm joined by my co-host, Steve Basic.
Yo.
And Peter Yost.
Hey, Jake.
And today we're going to talk about a subject that is near and dear to Pete's heart, and that is getting old.
I didn't see that coming.
I'm kidding. That's not why I volunteered to host, not to make the one old joke that we harass him about
exactly why you
all the time. We're going to talk about aging in place and what that means for a builder, an architect, a designer, what
Someone
we do.
In their 80s.
Exactly. So, Pete, would you like to take over?
Why, sure. So there's a bunch of different ways you can label this approach. I think the most encompassing is universal design. Certainly includes aging in place. We just moved into a 55 and over community, and there are 3 steps up to the front door and no railings. So my brother, who's having real difficulty walking, can't get into our house, even though it was designed for senior living. That's not universal design because not everybody can get through it. But I was going to start too with another story about, I used to, about 4 years in a row, I was doing, I was the building science consultant for charrettes that would be done in Indiana for affordable housing. The agency there would give a bidding process for 3 developers to get the inside track on a new development or 3 new developments. And each year the affordable housing would have a theme. And, like trying to
Clowns
get to Sears
or nature or what kind of themes?
All different sort of community living ideas. But the last time I went, which is just before the pandemic started, was called IDD. And so that was affordable housing for intellectually and developmentally disabled individuals. And the woman who was the keynote, it was, I think, a neuropsychologist. And she said, my son is on the autism spectrum. He is intellectually and developmentally disabled. And he refers to all of you as TIFs. There's probably 45 building professionals in this room. And she said, a TIF is anybody who is temporarily fully functional. And there was this long pause as everybody realized, oh, yeah.
This is temporary.
We all are temporarily fully functional.
I'm trying to figure out what the I in TIF stands for.
I don't think there's
There is no
I. That's why.
It's like the file name TIF, which is TFF or something. Oh, no, that's TIF.
TFF. See where my mind went there.
Yeah. No, I do now. Yeah.
Real quick, before we move on to this, you said just before the pandemic. Is that the last pandemic or is that the flu of 1918?
The Black Plague.
Actually,
42.
my oldest sister
I made a note for that joke, by the way. I wanted to make sure I didn't forget that.
It's a pretty dumb joke. Very noteworthy.
Interestingly, we my mother died at 100 this past May, and when we were interring her ashes, my oldest sister went through different Yost graves that are in this small Pennsylvania graveyard, and she said, "Oh, there's great uncle so and so. He had, I think, scarlet fever or maybe the last virus in the late
1917, 18, 19. My dad was born in 1916, but
You said
he went into a coma, and when he woke up, he had lost his daughter, who was born while he was in a coma, and he lost his wife and his daughter while he was out. And we don't realize that
when you wake up and you just go, pass. I'll go back.
Yeah, exactly. But how common losing family members was 100 years ago.
Yeah.
Medicine just we take it for granted. We take it for granted that they're going to develop a vaccine for us in 3 months or 8 months or whatever it is, when it took a couple of years until just this last round. Anyway.
Yeah, I had a friend of mine a long time ago who's a college professor talk to me about life expectancy, and you always hear like, oh, the average life expectancy was 33. Well, that's because 90% of children died before the age of 6. If you made it to 33, chances are you could still make it to 55 or 60 or 80 even. Like, it's the children died, like they dropped like flies constantly, 150 years ago. And that's why life expectancies look weird.
I was going for a walk in our neighborhood here, and there's an old cemetery at the corner. And I just went and looked at different tombstones. And one of the tombstones was, I think it was David Wiggin, died 1866 at the age of 95 years and 3 months.
Holy cow.
Imagine in 1866 being a 95-year-old.
Yeah.
Your cohort was pretty bloody small.
Yeah. You're just sweaty all the time, walking around going, enough, enough. We forgot to tell you when we were headed here, we knew we were getting close. Do you want to tell Peter how we knew we were getting close?
I think it's very mean what you're about to say.
He's not being serious. We saw more than one person walking with a walker. So we knew we were getting close.
It's like Walkersville.
Yep.
It was like obstacle course fill out there.
Just remember, you're a TIFF.
Yes, exactly.
You are a TIFF.
So there we go. You bring it full circle.
Bring it full circle. So if we're building long-term durable goods and the service life includes, for most of us, losing function, code be damned, we should be designing buildings for greater and longer accessibility to people that own them. And we don't do a terribly good job of that.
And we're not necessarily about to make an argument that every house should have an elevator.
Nope.
But we are trying to make an argument that there are
an elevator?
Half an elevator. Exactly. Will you press record on mine? It's the one closest to you. We're not making an argument that every house should have an elevator. But we are making an argument that there should be some thought process put into the idea of TIFF.
Well, I think this goes...
It's more like... Not TIFF.
It's like when you have a hair stuck in your mouth.
I'm not going there.
But this really starts with Steve. How tough is it as an architect to design in?
Very, very tough.
Because when we say temporary fully functional, it could be intellectually, it could be physically. There's a whole bunch of different ways that we would need to broaden our concept of how the home serves us.
Yeah, it's when you said universal design, the thing that came to mind is like how universal you want it, right? Because that spectrum is pretty darn wide.
It is,
right? Because you're talking. If you're doing a public library, for example, obviously you have to cater to the widest spectrum of universal design, which means somebody that's very healthy but maybe blind or deaf, which is different than somebody that can't navigate stairs or do something physical.
And so can we agree that all of this gets applied the same way everything gets applied? It really is a house by house basis, a client by client basis. I have a house that's starting right now. They're saying, well, this is going to be our forever home.
You had a house.
I'm building a new construction for a client that's starting right now. It's 3 floors.
Right.
And it's 1,700 square feet over those 3 floors. There is no universal design in much of what's happening there. If the inability to do stairs, that you can't get into the house, It's got a tuck under garage and a mudroom. You can live in the mudroom and go places in your garage. Like, so we can't apply all the same things to that house, and they wouldn't be able to build a house on this lot without building it the way that they're building it because of restrictions. So there's a push and pull with every residence and every, design constraints from the clients.
I think the reason the TFF struck so hard to this group was they started to realize we don't think about this at all. When you tell us intellectual development of disabled, we're just thinking, oh, we have to design for that population. And what this kid is saying is, you are all destined to be part of my population, which is not fully functional.
Yeah.
So the question, Steve, is, so you have a client. Maybe the most you can do is sensitize them to the fact, like, hey, if you're really serious about this being forever a home, what does that mean?
Probably not the greatest idea, or
Or a bedroom on the first floor, at least, so that you have a ranch plus.
When Christy and I were looking for a home in this area, you know how hard it was to find an existing home that had a decent sized bedroom on the first floor. Older New England homes that they're not designed that way. All the bedrooms are upstairs. So, Steve, what I was going to say is, though, that we make homes PV ready by having, those set up. Could we make them elevator ready? We now have elevators that are shaftless, that just have a center post.
We do that and, make them closets now.
So a vertical chase for people as opposed to for plumbing.
Like you're putting in an elevator, and you frame it like you were framing an elevator, and then you just infill the floor.
Yeah.
So you can take the infill out.
We had that on one.
Yeah. And then you plug in
closet over closet.
There is pretty good guidance on this from the federal government, from HUD. And they have a term called visitability, which is the first step in accessibility, which is, could a person with less than fully function visit your house? Not live in the house, but visit the house. What does that mean? Well, it means a 3-foot corridor, some type of way to get up into the house, and then
without
a 3
steps? Or with steps?
Well, maybe with steps, but configured to easily take a ramp. Because at my brother's house that he built and he designed in 1983, I think, it's not designed for getting up and out of there with a wheelchair at all, because the steps are too narrow. The hallway in the main part of the house is too narrow. The stairs are, there's a whole bunch of things he configured only as fully functional. But visitable means getting into the house, then a clear passageway to a 3.0 door on a bathroom. That home is visitable. They can't stay there, but they can visit it.
Visitable. I learned a new word today.
I really, so like for 5 or 6 years, not too long after I took over the company, we did a ton of work for an assisted living facility in our market that they no longer had a campus. They had individual houses. And so you went to every house, and the people that lived there were grouped by need and ability. And it was a constant conversation about, well, no, this is a house that won't ever have wheelchair access because it's got 6 steps leading up to it. So we don't have to worry about the same clearances because anybody that's going to live here isn't going to have that sort of thing. But it was a total mind-opening experience for me, because you go in and the people in charge of the house go, well, we need this much space. This is the kind of chair that the 2 gentlemen that live here use. This is the kind of help that these 2 guys need. This is what we need. That has nothing to do with what ADA says. This is what we need. And it was just like,
so it's a custom basis.
Yeah. And I immediately started going, oh, I don't understand how I'm going to work towards this, like in regular life. Now, the 3.0 doorways, hallways, low barrier of entry, 0 entry showers, things like that, those are easy to latch on to, but it can be, I think we're headed towards that. It can be a lot more complicated than just those things. So visitable is a great starting point. And so is that going to be our first Pete's resource for the episode? Is the HUD layout for those?
What's interesting is I worked on this project because the NHB Research Center, which was what it's called at the time, now it's the Home Innovation Center, they had a research home park where they owned probably, I don't know, 10 to 15 lots, but they had built maybe a half a dozen or so projects. And they worked on a house that was going to be visitable, if not universally designed. And I got tagged in as part of that project, and I didn't know anything about the topic, but there was a guy who was wheelchair bound, who was a consultant. His company was called Barrier Free Environments. And he was an architect, and he was disabled. And this was his new area of expertise, which was self-imposed sort of, or not self-imposed, but it wasn't his, he didn't induce his own disability, but he certainly was living the perspective of how difficult it was to get around. So yeah, there's a HUD visitability set of guidelines.
And so back to you.
Very interesting.
Back to you. How are you? Is this something that comes up? It
comes up in every project. Everybody says, well, I want to,
this is our forever house.
Yeah, forever house, age in place, blah, blah, blah. And it is kind of customizable per project, because not everybody wants everything universal, right? They want a curbless shower, but they want the toilet in its own closet. So most people
Unless
are very selective.
6 foot by 6 foot closet, that toilet's not going in that closet.
No, the toilet's in a 3x5 or 3x6 stall that there's no transfer space.
Yep.
And when you try and say, well, it's really not, well, yeah, but we value the privacy over that. So people want it, but they don't want it all usually.
Do you think that when you're talking to a couple in their 50s, that the conversation of TFF strikes a lot more resonance than if you're talking to a couple in their 30s?
That's for sure.
100%.
For sure. But I mean, look at you. You worry about it almost hourly. I hardly worry about it. But that's, I take care of myself. I'm in good shape. Walk every day 5 times. So.
Where are you going with this, Steve?
I worry about Pete's mobility. He's wearing Crocs. They don't seem to promote agility.
I tripped over one of these Crocs the other day because it caught my toe in front of me.
Pretty interesting. A guy from Missouri is making Croc jokes.
Okay.
Crocs are big in Missouri?
I'm not as far as I know. Maybe Steve's more up on the fashion trends.
I mean, if you looked at Croc sales over the last 10 years.
I think it's the crappy hotels that you choose to stay.
I think he's working on his own Croc right now.
Arkansas and Missouri topped the list in sales for the last 10 years in the Croc
Interesting.
market. But anyways, we should move on.
But Steve, what I'm trying to get at is the one thing that I think is really cool about your practice is that you've always told me, just tell me what you want, give me my constraints, and then let me design it to those constraints. We're doing a lot
more elevators, so people are definitely thinking about it more. But I'm trying to understand, some people want an elevator to say they have an elevator. Some people want an elevator because they're planning. And
chairlifts are cheaper.
Well, you know what somebody told me? Chairlifts are illegal in most states. That I didn't quite get.
So are fireworks, but...
Yeah, but we still shoot those off.
That's a new title for one of our podcasts. Fireworks and chairlifts. What do they have in common?
But, I'm trying to, it's always one of those things that you kind of hash out with the client on whether they're sincere to the concept, or is it just like an additional label they can put on their litany of labels for the house?
Well, what I was wondering is, people come to you for high performance design.
Yep.
How often do you see it as an opportunity to say, hey, part of high performance and part of long-term durability is designing for what's likely to happen?
I mean, most of the projects, hallways, for example, I mean, by code, they have to be 3 foot wide, but I probably start out at maybe 45 inches. So they're somewhere between 45 and 49 typically. But that's because all of my bedroom doors are typically 32-inch doors. I don't do 30-inch, I do 32. So if you have a door that's in the hallway, it's 2.8. So 2.8, but if you had
instead of 2.6,
if you have two jambs that are 5-inch jambs for trim and such, then you're at 42 inches. So you're right there at a 3'6" hallway, just by virtue of using the wider door. So it kind of pushes you to all of that, and then bathrooms certainly. There's a lot of space. I'm doing a house right now for a gentleman who's a quadriplegic. It is, I tell him, you are a inspiration for the world. It is amazing what this guy can accomplish given the parameters that he has to operate within. And we're doing, I'm doing a beautiful house for him. And there's details that, like, the whole floor frame is sunk inside the foundation wall. Yep. So we got, like 16 inches closer to the ground with the first floor. So what does that mean? It means that the ramp up to the porch and front door is 11 feet long, not 28 feet long.
Yeah. So what is it? 1 in 12 is what you have to 12.
Do. If you're doing it for a commercial building, I think it's 1 in 16. It's a little residential. It's like 1 in 12 is kind of the rule of thumb.
When we did ramps in my brother's house, they ended up being 2 in 12, and you think it can't be that much different. It's a world of difference. Oh, it's steep.
It's bike ramp territory all of a sudden.
Yeah. It's until you have to actually control a wheelchair with a full-grown person on 2 and 12. You think 2 and 12, that's the roof I walk without even thinking. Well, yeah, you're walking on the roof, not.
And if you don't do it often, it's hard. Like occasionally, I have a client that I do all the work on their houses, but they also own a restaurant, and we rehab that. And so occasionally, it's like, okay, we got to redo the bathroom or go in and do this bathroom over, or add a bathroom, whatever the case is. But there's so many, like, in a public bath, there's probably 50 or 60 critical dimensions.
Yeah.
Right? Because you see a paper towel holder on the wall. Well, it can't be higher than this dimension or lower than this dimension. Yep. The toilet paper hanger, everything has a high and a low and a distance from the toilet.
Right.
There's clearance distances in front of things, like you can't have anything in front of the sink for a 30 by 32 inch or whatever the number is.
Yep.
I always have to print out
I had a one sheet
40-page guide and everything. Doors that push. It's like on the push side, you can only, you maybe have 6 inches. On the pull side, you need 18 inches on the strike side of the door. So there's all of these rules. Like it adds an exponential amount of complexity to the project to bring all of these rules into play.
And do you think if you brought it up with, quote unquote, younger couples, let's say in your 30s, is there a stigma? Like, we don't want to have a house that looks like it's, for old people.
I think even the people that are older that are planning for it, there are still plenty of people that go, well, we don't want it to look.
We don't want it to look like a hospital bathroom.
Yeah.
Stuff.
So how do we skip that?
But it is, but the when you told me about that, the first time I heard it, it was huge. And I use that line all the time. We're temporarily fully functional, because I had a personal instance where I couldn't navigate stairs for about 4 months for a medical issue. And I was very fortunate. We had a full bathroom downstairs, and we had a bedroom downstairs in our house. And so in designing houses, people say, well, let's put all the bedrooms, upstairs and this and that. And I'm like, you want to put maybe just create an office,
closet in the office
or something, so that if you had to, you can put a twin bed in the office for 3 or 4 months, because you don't know. And it's not about getting old. It could be you get in a car accident and like your leg is crushed or something, and you can't walk for 3 or 4 months, and you're using a walker and you can't navigate stairs.
Well, the Murphy bed we have upstairs in Christine's office, I mean, it's a big deal that you can fold that up. You have a full office, and then all you got to do is, I mean, it's amazing that you can drop a queen bed, sleep perfectly comfortably, and it looks like an office when you fold the bed up. That's huge. Now that panel bed was not exactly inexpensive, but the utility we get with that room is doubled.
Yeah.
So it makes a big difference. So Steve, what you're saying is that
even if you're fully functional in your 30s, there's a chance that you could have, and it's not something like, oh, you get in a car accident and you never walk again. I'm not saying that.
Right.
You could have an illness that is a temporary illness that for 5 months you can't navigate the stairs.
Yeah.
For whatever reason, or you had knee surgery, you blew out your knee. I don't know.
Yeah.
But the idea that is you're temporarily fully functional means that temporarily you're going to be out of commission. Chances are.
So I'm everything that we've just talked about. I'm kind of hearing like 3 categories.
Are you hearing or listening?
Both.
Okay.
I'm kind of coming up with like 3 kind of categories. One is access to the house.
Mm-hmm.
2 is access once inside the house. And then 3 is like we need some key functions. And those key functions that have to be accessible would be like bedroom, bathroom at minimum. Like maybe you're in a spot where you cannot do stairs and you're going to have some assistance with life. Maybe reaching the stove is not the most important thing for some of what we're talking about. Obviously, on a person-by-person basis, maybe it is the most important thing to you. If that's the thing that's going to help you feel normal still, or feel like your old self. I don't mean normal in that way. I mean, like, feel like your old self. Maybe that does become important. But the things that have come up for everything that we're talking about is, can I get in the house? Can I sleep and use the bathroom? And can I navigate the house once inside? Those are pretty simple things for us to try to solve for, as long as people know that we're trying to make those little sacrifices up front, right?
And it might be something that, okay, if you want the privacy, say in the owner's suite or the primary suite, then maybe you do put the toilet in the closet. But then maybe down the hall in the powder room, instead of it being 5 by 5, that room is 5 by 8.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's a space to pull up next to the toilet in there with a wheelchair or a walker or something.
Or maybe we try to figure out where we could pull those 2 closet walls around the toilet at some point if we needed to, and it'd be just fine.
Yeah.
Well, so we've got some resources. We're saying that we can strategically sort of add key elements that sort of that increase the value of the home to a larger range of potential users. And then the other question I can think of is, do you bring this up on every project as, hey, look, I'm just checking in on...
Yeah, I do.
Yeah,
I do. But I think it's just a discussion that you have to check off the box.
It's sort of like when you sit down with a client, Stephen, to design, you draw boundary conditions on the building, its function, and the budget. And to help them with boundary conditions, you bring up all the topics that they should be thinking about, and a couple that they probably weren't going to think about. And that's then you're doing your job as a designer to give them the greatest chance for success, even if some of those are not things that they would have thought without your help.
Yeah, and it's real easy to glaze over the things that make a house livable, right? Like everybody wants to talk about what makes the house look good.
Yeah. Yeah.
But what makes the house livable is, people can easily just forget about that discussion very quickly. Quick question for both of you. And there is no way, none of us will ever know the answer, but do you think the person that will live to 150 years old is born yet?
Maybe.
The first person. See, why you can't ever just say yes or no? Or
because I don't know.
Well, it's always depends. Or of course you don't know. I just said you don't know. But I'm saying
I don't have a strong feeling either way.
Are you an intelligent guy?
No.
Develop an intelligent opinion.
Are you two listening to each other right now?
Well, he's not listening. I'm listening. What do you think? I'm done with him.
I don't think so. No.
You don't think they're there?
Not yet. Not yet. I think there are other challenges that are
what's
going
the
to.
oldest person that lived? Maybe 107, 109?
No,
Oh, and I think there's
113 in that range. Yep.
Okay, so, but you're still 30 or 25% away.
Right. And
75% of the way.
I think that a lot of our resources and focus is going to be distracting from longevity.
By extension of life.
I think there are other things that are going to be way more consuming of our intellect, our resources, our focus than
like simpler Rubik's cubes. Those damn things are
water.
Yeah, I was thinking along the lines of
like, how does everybody get
resources,
water every day?
Yeah. But that's just my personal feelings.
I'm throwing in one like aging in place tip that we devised that I thought was very intelligent. The Prairie House. The clients they're planning on aging in place. They have all the things that we talked about. There's very low entry into the home, wide hallways, good access, and the conversation for, well, we'll probably need grab bars in our 0 entry shower at some point. So we should put in blocking. So we just said, to heck with it. We're putting 3/4 plywood over all the walls in the shower before anything else goes in. So they can mount grab bars wherever the heck we want.
That's a huge one that we make it really hard to do grab bars. Yeah, that's a good one. What made you think to use 3/4 inch plywood? Just because then you can put them anywhere you want?
It was the quickest way to cover the walls and make it wherever we wanted to do it.
You don't have to think about it.
Yeah.
Cool.
And it's really not, and
we actually used Advantech.
more.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And it changes that retrofit from really difficult to mindless. Yeah.
Yeah. That was one of the things that when we did a lot of work for that assisted living company, they would have clients that would still have a regular tub shower fiberglass combo.
Right.
And they'd go, well, we need some grab bars.
Yeah. How do I do that?
I can put some outside the shower.
Yep.
But I can't put any inside the shower.
Yep. Yep.
So
cool.
Closing remarks. Okay. We want to say thank you for watching. We want to say thank you for subscribing to the YouTube channel that has other content.
We want to, or you want to?
I want to, and I'm assuming that you're happy that we have. Okay.
I'm with him.
He's a fence rider now. All of a sudden, he's been so upset.
The next podcast they'll come around, but I'm not prepared to say that.
I want to say thank you for listening today as well. We do this because we think that we're providing some sort of value. We want to share.
There's a lot of wheeze coming out of your mouth that we haven't discussed.
I participate in this because I want to share the things that I feel like I've learned, and I hope that you find value in it. And I hope that these two are doing it for the same reason.
Here.
So show us some love, subscribe, download the podcast, check out the YouTube channel because there is other content on Tuesdays.
Oh, can we talk about the other content? Can we please?
Go right ahead. Tell this.
No, you can't. You just lost your opportunity.
Since your cell phone's not on silent.
I shut it off twice already.
I did.
When we talk about aging in place, somebody who doesn't know how to make
you've already crossed into no longer temporarily fully functional.
Not going to talk about it.
And on that note,
thanks everybody.
Thanks for listening.
Bye.